Hi guys, I am currently hiding in Annalise's room. My husband is downstairs working on taxes right now, so I decided to come upstairs and hide out here so I could make a video, because I haven't made any videos in, since November actually. And with everything changing with YouTube and a lot of channels like mine getting demonetized because I don't have enough subscribers or enough monthly views or whatever, in a couple of days I'm going to be demonetized completely. My entire channel is just... So I decided I better get moving, get some more videos, get some more subscribers, do some things. And I realized it's been a really long time since I've done anything on Annalise. So I'm up here in her room right now. You can see Adelia's room right there and the god-awful mess. Look at that. She is a pig. Good Lord, child, all them toys. Spoiled. Anyway, so I decided I would do a kind of update on Annalise. She is 4 years old now. She just turned 4 last month. Anna was born with congenital hypothyroidism. In Minnesota, they do a newborn screening. I don't know how it is in other states, other countries or whatever, but here in Minnesota, every single child, right away when they're born in the hospital, they get a little heel prick and they take a little blood and then they run a bunch of different tests to see if there are any sort of disorders that may affect our children as they grow. I may have previously mentioned that Wyatt was misdiagnosed in his newborn screening for a metabolic disorder that he didn't have, thankfully. But Annalise, however, they found out she had congenital hypothyroidism through this newborn screening. So while we had a bad experience with it with Wyatt, we actually had a very positive experience with it for Anna. She was about a week old when we got the results back, found out that she had hypothyroidism and that she would require medication. We started seeing an endocrinologist who we have continued to see throughout the last 4 years of her life. He is amazing. Dr. Tebben at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota is the best. He has been absolutely wonderful and so great with our daughter, and I would highly recommend him to anybody who is dealing with anything and is in our area that would require an endocrinologist for their child. He is top-notch and he's been wonderful and we love him. So anyway, the first 3 years of her life, she was on medication. She takes Synthroid. See, our insurance goes back and forth on what it will cover and it won't cover. For a while, it would only cover the levothyroxine, and then it switched, and it would only cover the Synthroid, and now it's back to levo, and it's obnoxious what they will and won't cover and what is more expensive. Synthroid is the brand name. The levothyroxine is the generic version of the Synthroid. Some people, it does affect them differently and they are sensitive to one or the other. Annalise does not have a problem either way. So it really doesn't matter which one she takes. We just do whatever. We will fill the prescription of whatever the insurance will pay for. I don't give a crap. Just fill it. So anyway, she took either Synthroid or levothyroxine for the first 3 years of her life. And then at that point, her endocrinologist wanted to take her off the medications and just kind of see what her thyroid could do on its own. So at 3 years, we went in, we saw him, we did a blood test. Okay, this is where she is while on medication. Now let's take her off the medication and just see how she does, see how her thyroid does. At first, she did quite well. And we were doing blood tests every few weeks and making sure, okay, she did great at a month. Now let's try 3 months and see. The first one she did at a month was great. Her thyroid did wonderfully on its own. We did it again then at 3 months, and it was not great, but not awful. You know, okay, let's go another 3 months without medication, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Went another 3 months, and still wasn't good. It was getting worse. Her TSH was rising. You want it to be 5 or under. I know for me personally, I have hypothyroidism, and for me personally, my TSH must be under a 2. I can't even be in the 2 to 5 range. If I am above a 2, I feel like crap. Anna is good as long as she is under 5. And she was at the 7 range, and then the next test she was in the 9.5 range, I believe. So while her thyroid had done well at first on its own, when she first got off the medication, it was starting to kind of peter out and tire out as time went on. So we made the decision then to put her back on the Synthroid and to test again and just see. How does she do being back on the medication for 3 months? Went it for another 3 months with her back on medication. TSH came back down. Strangely, her T4 never moved. Sometimes that, will move too, but for her, it didn't move. But her TSH did come back down with her being back on the medications. At the time that we met with him and discussed what our next, should we go back on medication, should we not, I explained to him that I could tell that my daughter was not doing well and that her thyroid was not doing well. And she was simply not the child she had been the first 3 years of her life. Anna has always been a very happy child. Very sweet, very innocent, very outgoing, very just a sweet little girl. After, like that first few months, she was okay, but as her thyroid started to tire out, so did she. She was sleeping more often, going to bed earlier, not getting up until much later in the morning than normal. I leave for work before 7 a.m., so most of my kids are not awake. Sometimes Adelia is, but very rarely are my kids awake. And on my days off, they're usually up by 8 o'clock at the latest. Anna wasn't getting up at 8 o'clock anymore. Anna was getting up at 9, and then 10, and then 11, we were coming up here and waking her up and saying, hey, kid, you got to get up. You've already slept half the darn day away. So going to sleep earlier, getting up later, and no matter how much sleep she got, she never seemed rested. She never was in a good mood. She always had that kind of cranky toddler, I need a nap attitude. And if you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. You know when your kids need to sleep, even when they fight it and they don't want to. And you need a nap, you need to go to bed, whatever. Well, Anna was in this mood all the time. No matter how much sleep she did or didn't get. Tried to wake her up earlier. Maybe she's sleeping too much. We'll see if we can get her to feel better if maybe she doesn't sleep so many hours. And just nothing worked. Nothing made her happy. Nothing made her seem rested. She was very whiny, very tearful. Some of that is normal for a 3-year-old. 3-year-olds can kind of be jerks. But this was well beyond what was normal for her and what was normal for any of my other children. I have 3 other children who are older than her, and none of them were this way at this age. Definitely not to this extent. Maybe here and there, but not all the time. So when we met with him, I said that, she's really not herself. She's definitely not the Annalise we have known for the last 3 years. And she had, I honestly began to worry about depression. And in a 3-year-old, that's really scary. She started talking about things that made me very sad and very, very uncomfortable. She would say things like, you don't love me. You don't want me. I'm going to run away because you don't want me to live here anymore. Where the hell was this coming from? She's my baby. And I'll be honest, I tend to kind of, I don't want to say pick favorites because I love all my children, all 4 of them the same, but I tend to favor her because she's the baby and she is my last child and last everything. So she tends to get babied more than anybody else does. And for her, getting the most affection out of all of us, yet seeming to have the least effect on her, was concerning to me. It was very much, it was constant several times a day. You don't love me. You don't want me. I shouldn't live here anymore. And to hear your 3-year-old say that and be crying and tearful and sobbing into your chest, it was terrifying and gut-wrenching and so, so hard to see. And nothing I said, nothing I did made any difference. I was completely unable to convince her that I loved her and that I wanted her and that she was never going to go anywhere, that nothing she ever did could change how much Daddy and I loved her and how much we wanted her. And like there was no convincing her that she was wanted and loved and needed in this family, and she just wanted to leave. So I was very worried about depression and anxiety and all of the things that I suffer from myself. And I brought that up to her doctor. And he said that depression in children with hypothyroidism is common when their thyroid levels are very out of whack. But Anna's wasn't. Anna's wasn't that bad that it should have been causing these types of issues with her. However, again, just like the different medications, some people are more sensitive to certain things than others. Some people react differently to different medications. Annalise apparently was just very sensitive to these fluctuations in her TSH. We'll put her on the medications and we'll see how she adjusts. And it wasn't a night and day thing. She didn't miraculously get better in 2 minutes. It was a very slow progression over the last few months, but it has definitely improved, for sure. She's staying up later now, which isn't my favorite thing, because she can stay up till 11 o'clock now and drive me completely bananas when I want to go to bed. But she is able to stay up later at night, and she gets up at the same time, and sometimes even earlier than Wyatt and Adelia do. And she will occasionally take a nap, but then she's 4. So, it's not a big deal if a 4-year-old needs to take a nap. It's not every day, but some days she does. Some days she does come up here and she lays down for an hour or so, and she's fine. But she's not in that mood where she needs a nap all the time. And if she doesn't go take a nap, I swear to God, I'm going to lose my mind. It's never that bad anymore. Her attitude is completely different. She's back to being that pleasant, sweet, outgoing, talkative little girl that she was before. Temper tantrums and whining are at what I would consider a normal level now for a 4-year-old little girl. The talk of the depression talk, the you don't love me, you don't want me, I'm not going to live here anymore, has almost completely subsided. Not 100%. If she gets in trouble and she gets yelled at, she will kind of pull that one, but I don't know if that's more of a 4-year-old pulling a card like, well, you're yelling at me, then you must not love me, and boo-hoo, feel bad for me. That's what 4-year-olds do. Obviously, you don't love me because you won't give me that pony. It's stuff like that. Again, normal 4-year-old behavior. It's no longer the constant depressive, break my heart, something is wrong with my baby type stuff. So, definite, vast improvement from what we were a few months ago when we went back on the medication. She's doing quite well. We saw her endocrinologist then last month for her for like a 4-year checkup and just to see how she was doing. He said she's doing well. Annalise has always been small, kind of on the petite side. Because of the hypothyroidism, she probably will be small all of her life. It is very likely that she will be a short adult. It is what it is. I'm not very tall myself anyway, so it's not like she had a lot to go on in the first place. But because of the hypothyroidism, it is very likely that she will be my height or less, which, whatever, as long as she's healthy, who gives a crap, So what if she's short? I'm short. What ifs? We cute. So, she's in like the 50th percent range for weight. So she's a normal weight. I believe she's in the 25th percentile for height, which is fabulous considering where she came from. The first year of her life, she wasn't even on the scale for height at all. She was like below 2%. So for her to come up to 25% is actually magnificent for her. She continues to grow at a steady rate, and that is what they're looking for the most. They don't ever expect her to get to 50th percentile or higher. That's okay. As long as her height continues to go up at whatever rate is appropriate for her. They don't really care as long as it's going up somehow. And one of the big factors in having her on medication for the first 3 years of life is that development factor and making sure that her brain is getting the hormones that it needs to develop properly. She had her, I forget what it's called. They do a screening in the like 3 to 4 year old type age range, and they want you to do it before they go to preschool, which she will go to preschool next fall, and definitely before they go to kindergarten. She did that a few months ago, and she did wonderfully. She passed all the tests, the vision, the hearing, all of the cognitive tests and everything that is required, and she is where she should be for a child her age. Sorry, my nose, it just something fierce at the moment. So she's meeting all of her milestones. She continues to grow. She is not average, but she's growing the way she should and is on that upward curve and is learning and growing and doing everything that she should be doing at 4 years old. So, yes, most likely Annalise will have to be on thyroid medication for the rest of her life. This test at 3 years old was to see whether or not she could handle being off it. And usually, if they can, they will by that 3-year mark. So the fact that her thyroid tired out most likely means she will need the medication forever. Is that a big deal? No. Like I said, I myself have hypothyroidism that I developed after Wyatt's pregnancy. And I've needed medication changes during pregnancy. When I was pregnant with both girls, I needed to have my medication upped and then brought back down to whatever range. Sometimes it fluctuates. I can tell when I need to have my medication adjusted just by the way that I feel. Because of my bariatric surgery and my inability to absorb things as well as normal people would, my bariatric team checks my thyroid a little more often than it would otherwise. I could go a few years without being checked. However, because of my bariatric stuff, and since they're doing blood work anyway, they check that while they're doing other blood work. So I'm monitored a little more closely than the normal person would. And Annalise will probably have to have hers checked every 3 years or so. As she gets older and things stabilize, it will need to be less often. Right now we're doing it a lot just because we want to see where she gets back to and make sure that she's still doing well. But it's not a big deal. Next month, I think at the end of next month, we will go in and have blood work done and check her TSH then, but we do not need to see the doctor. And we shouldn't need to see the doctor again until she's 5. And so it'll be like yearly. We'll go in, we'll see him, we'll do the blood work, we'll make sure everything's where it's supposed to be, and then we're done. Which is a little sad because I love Dr. Tebben. But at the same time, I'm glad we don't need to go in as often, and she doesn't need to be poked and blood drawn. And she's old enough now to know what's going on. So it's sad in that sense because she knows I'm going to get poked, and I know it's going to hurt, and I know it's going to suck. And that anxiety that comes with a little kid having to deal with those constant medical type things kind of sucks. But, considering how bad it could be, considering some of the things that other parents go through with their children, it's not a big deal. It was scary at first. I won't lie, I was scared. And nobody wants to see their newborn baby be stabbed in the arm 8 million times for blood draws. But she did well, and she's doing well. And as long as she stays on her medication, she will continue to do well. And it's pretty normal now. It's just part of our routine. She takes her pill before she goes to bed, and she just chews it up and goes to bed, and that works well for us. If it ever stopped working well, they've recommended her taking it first thing in the morning instead of at night, but that has always been the way we've done it, and it's always worked quite well for her. So we will continue to do it that way unless something changes and it doesn't work. So anyway, that's my ridiculously long update on Annalise and her congenital hypothyroidism at 4 years old. If you have any questions, please go ahead and leave a comment and ask. I am more than happy to answer them. And as always, Please feel free to subscribe, like, and share this video. Maybe help me out with this stupid demonetization crap. I don't know what YouTube's trying to do. I don't know. I got a cow. That's all I know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.